So today we are going to talk about how the actual implementation guide look like, and also, as discussed during the last class, I will show you the overall hierarchy of the 837 transaction. So let's first look at the implementation guide, how it looks. So this is the actual document, but this is not a document for 5010. This is the 4010 implementation guide. So talking about the implementation guide, when the document gets released by HIPAA, this is exactly how it looks. So see here, this is just the index of it. I'll take you to the transaction set. This is the main area where you need to, for any document which you are reading related to the EDI, and that is the implementation guide. This is the moreover area where you need to focus on, and we'll talk about how to read this document, and also if we are looking for some specific information and we need to understand the values. There are many companies, most of the companies I would say, have their documentation along with the Nginx is the software where they have all the documentation access. You can go and look up the values and the translation of each users defined value which they have. Now let's jump onto the transaction set. That is the area where we need to understand, because that's how you are going to understand how to translate the values which are coming on the data which is being submitted by the third party, which is the outside vendor or the clinical house, anything, and then we'll transform those values. Now see here, this explains the overall architecture of the data. Now when we have to start looking at the data in this way, which is our loop and the segment, it will be all over the place because the document itself is 634 pages. So what I have done is I have translated the overall loop and segment into a smaller steps, and in Visio I have created a document which will be very easy for you to understand. Now here is the document. What do we see here? As we see here, the overall document billing provider, subscriber detail, patient detail, they all can be repeated on a single file. The reason being is this is the start and the end of the file. In between, let's assume if the John Kennedy Hospital is submitting a claim, they are not going to submit a claim for one patient, one file. No, they are going to submit a volume of data. For example, they will have maybe for last 3 days the number of patients they have treated or provided services to. Also the physicians who have provided services to those patients. So you can see multiple providers who rendered the services. The billing provider would be more or same because the John F. Kennedy will have one single entity who is billing for them, or maybe more than one depending upon how big are their practices. Subscriber details are going to change because they have seen multiple patients, so maybe the patient itself is a subscriber or the subscriber is different than the patient. And then the multiple patient detail, because the actual patient who are treated are going to vary depending upon the number of patients they have treated. So that is the reason how this gets broken down into multiple hierarchical segments. Now let's look at it, what is inside each hierarchical level and how to read that. Just look at it. What do we see here? That overall transaction starts with the header, which is the same header what you see over here. This is the same header, but I have just further broken down this HL1 to understand in detail. Now see here, this is 1000A, which is submitter name and the receiver name. So you have this segment which is coming as part of the header. So header has to have a who is the submitter and who is the receiver. This information is going to be part of your header. Moving along, what do we have? We have billing provider, which is HL1. See here how the HL1 is broken. See here, HL1. The HL1 is further broken down into multiple subsections, which are the loops. You see here, each loop is further broken down into data element, and each each loop is broken down into data segment, and each data segment is further broken down into data element. That I will show you in the document. Now see here, this information, the submitter name and the receiver name, is there is no repetition because always there will be one submitter and one receiver. Whereas when it moves on to the HL1, in HL1 you have the 2000A, which is the pay to provider, no repetition, billing provider name and the pay to provider name. Now here, what do we see here? Is HL1 loop repeating? If the loop is going to be repeated, it goes back. That means for the next provider also, the same loop is going to get repeated. So this is loop 2000A, 2010AA, 2010AB is going to get repeated again. When I say loop repeated, means inside that loop, whatever data segment is there, inside the data segment, all the data elements are there, all that will be repeated for that billing provider for which this HL1 is going to get repeated. Now, moving on to HL2. Now here it says that if this is not being repeated, it will move on to the HL2 segment. Now in HL2, you have this, which is 2000B related to subscriber hierarchical level, 2010BA subscriber name, 2010BB credit card related details. Then we have 2010BC, 2010BD. Now again the question is this going to get repeated? Answer is yes. Then again it goes back to your okay. So if it is repeated again, it will go back to HL2 and all the loops under the HL2 will be repeated. If no, that is going to say and move on to HL3, the patient detail. If the patient detail is repeated, again you have the repetition of yes or no. If it does, then the entire patient detail, which is the hierarchical level, is going to get repeated. If the answer is no, it just moves on to the next level and moves on from the patient segment, which is your hierarchical level 3. So this is what it is. We will see it, we will pick any of the loop and see then further breakdown of the data segment and the data element. But just to continue on this, this is the continuation here, that if this doesn't, then go to next. Now see what happens here. Now see, this is a little bigger picture. If you want, you can take a print of it so that you have it handy and you can compare it. Now see here. Once the patient information is done, now where it is moving, see here, it is moving to the 2300 loop, which is the claim information. And before we go over all these loops, just see here. Over here it says, is there claim line other subscriber pair loop? If no, it stays inside, it stays here. But if, come here, is claim level loop repeated? The claim information is going, if there, that means if there are multiple claims on the file, the system is going to check to see if there is the same loop repetition, which is the 2300 loop it is talking about. If yes, this arrow, what do we see over here? Yes. Where does it points back? It points back again to the 2300. That means this entire loop is going to get repeated for the claim, because there are multiple claims in that same file. How many times that can be repeated? 0 and greater than equal to 100. That means that is the limit. It cannot go beyond 100. That is the limit they can submit in a single file. What system can take it? So that is the limitation on the file. Now let's look at it, all the loops. Loop 2300, claim information. See, when you are looking at, if you just know this 3-page document, you know the full 837. You know exactly how to read the 837 file, and the reason being is I'll help you understand that also. Just look at it. It says loop 2300 related to claim information. Under that further breakdown you have 2305 related to home health plan. Again, wherever there is a repetition, I have put in a loop and a kind of a decision box to say that whether there is going to be repetition or not. If yes, this can repeat more than 6. This is the 5010 document. Now, okay, so talking about, so coming back to the loop and segments for the 2300 claim segment. So as I said, that if you just know these 3 pages, that means you know the complete implementation rights of the 837 data. But the only thing you need to, going forward, make sure that you are able to do is, so this is 2300, and under that, followed by, you have all these pieces of information. I'll just quickly go over this and then I'll take you back to the implementation guide, how to relate those files. For example, if you have 2300 claim information, let's go here and look at the 2300. Directly jump onto 2300. You see here, this is the area where you need to read through. See, what I just explained is that in the 837, this is the institutional implementation guide what we are looking at. So we have the header. Then we have the pay to or the billing provider hierarchical level. So this is what I just explained is the billing provider hierarchical level. Then you see here it says more than one. That means the entire 2008 is talking about. Entire 2008, which is 2008. See here, 2008 is going to get repeated. This 2010 AA and 2010 AB is inside the 2008, and that is why you have this 2 is dependent upon this. That is why if this repeats, that means these all 3 will be repeated. That's what it says, that if this is more than 1, then this segment and this loop, both the loops are going to get repeated. So what do we see here is 2010 AA is a loop. These are the data segments, or you can say data elements, because there is no such data segment over here. When we get to 2300, I'll show you how, why I said there is no such data segment here, because these are all data elements. So if you have to look at the actual value, you need to, for the billing provider name, for example, you need to go in 2010 AA loop under NM1 data segment or data element. That's where you need to go to find out the billing provider name. So this is your billing provider. Now hierarchical level 3, which is for the subscriber, again it says repeat more than 1. Now under that, again you have 2010 BA, which is part of 2000 B. You see here, this line is outside and this is in. That means all these segments, all these subscriber and the loops, what we see here, which is internal to this table, is part of the hierarchical level for the subscriber. This is the subscriber level. And this says repeat once. That means under 2000 B, 2010 BA can only be once. Now when you have the second iteration of subscriber hierarchical information, again you will have a subscriber name only once, because the repeat says only once. So this can only be repeated once. Subscriber name, you can have a repetition for the actual data element also. So it says 111. Now see, subscriber secondary identification maximum you can have 4. That means your RES can repeat 4 times. Now, this is a very good way to read that. Now see here on page 99 you can find more information about it. Or 101 page you can find more information. I just don't want to navigate right now. I'll navigate it once we go over this. Then you have the hierarchical level 3, which is the patient related. Again, same way to read it. Patient hierarchical level, more than one. Inside that you have all this which is going to get repeated. Now, bear in mind, in the this is only going to repeat it more than one, we are saying it. But if it is not repeating anymore, then it jumps on to 2300. See, look 2300. So we say no repetition of patient. Then let's move on to the 2300. This is the 2300. You see here it says 100. That means this 2304 can repeat max up to 100. Now this is all the claim level information. This is all claim level information. You see here. What you need to showcase, what I'm trying to showcase over here is, let's see this line. This is how when you will navigate through, you will see everything is coming inside. So this line is the 2300. This is for the hierarchical level 3. So this is going to get repeated. Then again, everything is inside. Everything is inside. And that's how you read this document. But now let's move on. For example, you want to see attending physician name. Now there, before we jump on, see these are some values like R, S is situational, and R stands for required. What it means? That means every time the data will be submitted, the value must be passed on to that field. So that field becomes required. Whereas if something is situational, that means if the situation is satisfied, then only that value needs to be populated. We'll look at one situational case so that you understand. Moreover, this happens more on the institutional professional side, or you can think about maybe there is an auto accident plan. If the claim is related to auto accident, you are going to have that value populated. If the claim is not related to auto accident, you are going to have that field blank. So that is a situation specific. If the claim is related to emergency, then you will have the field populated. If not, it will be blank. If the claim is a professional claim, you will have that field populated. If not, that will be blank. So let's look at one of the situational cases. For example, other provider. Now see, other provider name, as it says, this is how we are going to find specification for each of the values. Other provider name is under the loop 2423. The loop is other provider name. It can only repeat once. Usage means how to use that field. It's situational, which is S. It will repeat only once. Notes. Now the information. Because the usage of this segment is situational, this is not a statically required loop. If this loop is used, then this segment is required segment. See appendix A for further detail. What it means to say is, if we are filling out this information, you need to make sure you provide the subsequent information too. So let's look at it. Required if other provider NM1 information is different than the carried in the 2010 C loop, which is the claim loop. So what means is, if your rendering provider or the provider which is in 2010C, we will go back and see that also, whichever provider is entered over here, if this provider which we are entering in the system is different, then only you need to fill that out. If not, you don't. Required on all outpatient and home health claims encountered to indicate the person or the organization who rendered the care. In the case where a substitute provider was used, that person should be entered over here. So you can see how specific the situation is. There is a rendering provider, but for some reason the rendering provider was not available and there was a substitute for that, then only that substitute becomes other provider. How less likely that is going to be happening, but if that happens, this is where your other provider will be captured. But see here, the best part over here is the example. You have NM1 separated by value 73, then 1 again separated, then we have the name, first name or last name, first name. Then now I want to see what exactly it is. NM1 is your individual organization name. Now this value which we are seeing, this is the full value of 2420C, including all the data elements. And what we see over here is just NM1, which is just NM1. Under NM1 you have, you see here, NM1, NM102, NM103. You have multiple data elements, but read this document. NM1, entity code ID. This is the ID field. Entity type qualifier. This is again the ID field where you can have one value max. Last name you can go from 1 to 35. That is how it is. 1 to 35 you can go. First name 1 to 25 characters. Middle name 1 to 25 characters. This is no longer there. Name suffix you can have 1 to 10 maximum character. ID code qualifier, again this is the ID, you can maximum have 1 to 2 digits or alphanumeric, whatever the format of the ID. ID code you can have 2 to 80 characters, and this is no longer there. So moreover, when you are reading through the document itself is self-explanatory. Now see here, we have a value of 73. What this 73 stands for? Let's see here. See, when the identifier NM101 applies to all data segments in the iteration of loop 2420, the 73 means other physician. So, what do we see here as a 73 value? This 73 in EDI world automatically knows that 73 stands for other provider. Now, which is the other physician. Now see here. Then you have NM102 value 1 or 2, not and, 1 or 2. You see here. Thus after 73 see this is NM101, this is NM102. 102 have a value of 1. That means 1, these are user predefined values. 1 means a person, 2 means non-person entity. So all these values are already translated. Now see here. Again, for the first name, last name, you have the name. I'm just translating all the things where the values are there. Then you have NM10H 2434XX. XX means this is Healthcare Financing Administration National Provider Identification. In this case, you are just passing on the variable here. See. '24. You are passing 24. So this is the name, and this is the suffix. See here, SR. This is the name, and this is the suffix. That's what we have skipped right now. Now we are looking at the 24 value, which is employer identification number. So we are looking at the employer identification number. That's the value which is being passed. Now see, identification code qualifier says that maximum value it can accept is 2. That's the max it can accept, and this is the ID. So maximum it can accept 2, and the predefined value is 24, 34, and accept. These are the only 3 acceptable value by EDI in that particular field. Let's assume, being an EDI analyst, there are some random values are coming in that field. Then what you would do? That is what you need to analyze and research, that why the claim is having the incorrect value, because that claim will error out, because the system will not be able to identify that provider in the system. The system will reject with some message code, and then you, being an analyst, on the EDI side, you will go and look at the error report. Depending upon what type of software they are using it, depending upon what kind of reports they have in place, industry-wide they use the error report to identify all the errors due to which the claim is getting rejected. Now, being said that, the most popular errors, what you see in EDI is member not on file and the provider not on file. Means, let's say the claim file, the 837 file came from Quest. Now Quest, you are looking at the mass report, which is the bulk report where the claims are being not loaded, or I would say claims are being rejected by EDI, and all the claims goes to the error report. When you are looking at the error report, you see for some reason the Quest is not getting mapped with the system. And why is that happening? That is happening because the system is unable to locate Quest Diagnostics as a listed provider in their system. So what happened? All the claims from Quest, it's not 1 or 2 claims, obviously lab will submit. All the claims from Quest got into the error report because the provider was not identified. Now let's say you fix that problem, you were able to correct that provider information due to which it was failing into the error report, and now you rerun that. Now when you re-adjudicate that on the EDI side, I'm talking EDI adjudication, okay? When you re-adjudicate that claim on the EDI side, what happens? All the claims from Quest got corrected and ready for the claim adjudication. So that is how the cycle is. And then, so in those cases, when you are working as an investigational analyst, you are working as a data analyst, this is how you need to read through the document and identify all the objects, all the data elements which are coming as part of the file. And that is how you are going to identify whether something which can be fixed from your end, or you need the submitter to correct those errors and then resubmit it. That is how you are going to work it out. Now, let's go and look at here. For every data segment, we are going to have this breakdown, which explains all the possible values. So, moreover, when you are working as part of the industry, you should have access to certain documents which translate all these values, which help you understand what each user-defined value means, how to read this document, how to understand the meaning of it, where to find this particular data. So, for example, let's say you are giving raw data. Raw data means you are looking at the huge text file of 837. How will you navigate? You will navigate through these numbers. What is this number? That means in the file, the text file, position number, open the text file into the text pad, and you will see that position number 1065, let's say this is 1065, over here it will give you the location, that okay, what character location you are right now at. And if that is your 1065, that means that is your entity type qualifier value, what you are looking at, only one character. That is. Then let's say you are looking at the organization name. That means on 1035 position, you are going to see other last organization name up to 35 characters. So you can see that, okay, up to 35 characters, you are only going to see the name. Anything after that, you are going to have a first name, which is again going to expand up to 25 characters. So that is how you are going to understand and read through the raw data. So this is more about your reading through the 837 implementation guide. Similarly, you will have other documents too. Now, as I mentioned that this is the implementation guide. And now let's jump on to the document talking about the 4010 to 5010 implementation perspective. Now this document is going to help a lot to understand how the implementation happens. Now, if you was working as a business analyst, for example, and you would have worked on the 4010 to 5010 implementation, this is exactly what any BA would have delivered. He would have or she would have taken all the data points from the 4010 and did the crosswalk in 5010 by reading through the implementation guide and with the support of the subject matter experts from the EDI as well as from the CAME or the different downstream systems side. Now what has changed, that's what you need to understand over here. This is the 4010 and this is the 5010. So we have the identifier, then we have the description, what is the field type, whether this is the NC or whether this is the ID, what is the minimum and the maximum length, which is the length of the field, usage, which is RS, or you are going to see, or NU, which is not used. Then you have a loop, which is not be there for the transaction level header and the beginner hierarchical level. And then you have the repetition of the loop, whether that is going to get repeated or not. And then you have the values. Wherever you see the blank values, that means it's a custom value. Wherever you see the already the value is there, that means that field can only accept that value. That means the value is predefined as per the implementation guide. For example, name. Name cannot be predefined because everyone can have a different name. Whereas whether the provider is Medicare or not, I'm just giving a hypothetical example. That is predefined. That if it is a Medicare provider, you will use this value. If it is not a Medicare provider, you will use that value. So in that way, some fields have the predefined value, some fields have the user-defined value. So now let's start and look at the document. So as it says, it's a side-by-side comparison of the data. So as we see, ST03, we don't have ST03 in 4010. This ST03 is the new data element which got added in 5010. That's why it is flagged as new element. Similarly, you have originator application transaction ID BST03 and you come here BST03. Both the values are there. That means it was there before also, it is there now also. But what has changed? The format has changed. The field length has changed. Earlier it was only up to 1 to 30, but now it is 1 to 50. So that means 20 additional characters got added. Then again, you see here BHT06, BHT06, nothing changed here, 22 values, 22. But here there is the 31, which is not here. 31 got added, which is the new value. Now let's understand what is the 31, which is BHT06. Let's copy this. Which is 31. Okay. Where did the document go? Okay, I think I closed it, but let me just quickly pull it up. Okay, so here we are going to look for let's look at it in a different way. Okay, BHT06. BHT06. I think we are at the end of the document. Let's go to the what happened. Why am I not finding it? Here it says that the values are okay. See here. BHT06 is used to indicate the type of bill service being sent, fee for service or encounter or mixed bag of both. That means what they are saying is that when the claim is being submitted, the claim can be submitted here. See, earlier it was only two values, like the CH and RP. One of the values says fee for service, another value means that it can be capitated. Whereas now they have that, okay, the physician can have both type of submission. So when they have this type of setting, so now they have added a new value code or added over here to represent that. Now moving on, if you see this REF01, all this from here to here is all together wiped off. This transmitter type is completely no longer there in the 5010. You see that REF01, 02, 03, 04, the full transaction set is deleted from the 5010. See, this is what the major translation happens when the big implementations are done. So what happened, when they were using this 4010 over the years, they realized the need of modification, whereas what is the need of modification? That some of the values are unused, they don't get used, so they get rid of it. Some of the values, they see the need of it. For example, they saw the need of 31, which was very different, which was very difficult for them to represent that. So what they did is they added some new values. Not only that, for example, increase from 35 to 50. See here, if you go and look at the history and look at the 4010 data, you will see there are a lot of truncation in the name, or you will find some abbreviation in the name. For example, submit last name, organization name in all those fields. Why? Because the field length was so restricted up to 35. Maybe there is a name which is longer than 35. So those type of values were getting truncated when the 837 was getting generated. So the system was capable of taking the full name, but when the 837 was getting generated, EDI was dropping that name because of the limitation of the field length. Now they have expanded that. So now the expansion have happened from 35 to 60. Similarly, the next field, which is your submitter middle name or the first name, you see here, this has gone from 25 to 35. Here it was only 25. So now it has gone 10 extra characters. So this is, then we have here NM112, altogether new segment, which is not there in the 4010. Now that got added in 5010. So this is the three-step procedure how we are going to read this document. Number one, for your analysis perspective, start with this document.
Wherever you get stuck, jump onto this document and read through it and explore that to see what was in 4010. Because the implementation guide which we are looking at is 4010, just for your reference. Otherwise, you need to buy the 5010 implementation guide if you wish to. And then you can see that what has happened, what has changed in 5010. Read the 4010 implementation guide, look at the 4010 data element, and then translate it to 5010 to see if there any change has happened. And then that's how you read the full document. And this is a 9-page document. You can read it and then also see that what kind of a changes has happened. And this will give you the overall understanding of how to read through the data. Now, these are all the details we are talking about. Now you need to go to the summary. Then this is the 837 implementation guide, I think. Yeah, this is the 837. Okay. So anyhow, we are now. Then you need to go to the Visio, which is the Visio documentation, which is this, to understand the overall data structure and the hierarchy. To understand it, how each data element is related to the data loop. So this is completely up to you. How do you want to start it? Start with here, then go to the implementation guide, read through it, what is inside this. Before that, you can just go here and see that, okay, how it is broken down. And then from this area, you start it off, read through the implementation guide, see what is there in the 4010. After that, you go to the crosswalk, which is this document, read through the translation from 4010 to 5010 to understand how the fields are mapped from 4010 to 5010, what exists today. You are going to find it in the 5010 side of that, how the field lengths have changed. And that is all what you can do to understand the overall 837 implementation guide, loop, data segment, and the data element. See, this is what, this is your data segment, NM1. Under that, you have a data element, which are 101, 102, 103. So you see, this is a continuation of one, which is NM1. So NM1 is common in all, and then you have 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, like that, and which continues up to 12. Similarly, you have N3 data segment. Under that, you have N301, N302. These are the data elements. For N4 data segment, you have again N401, N402, N403, so forth, so on. And that is exactly how your data element and the data segment goes on. And that's how you read your documentation. And that is the full architecture of your 837 EDI file.